because you are his wife. How then could I do this great evil and sin against God? You know what he's doing? Joseph is focused on the goodness of God. Joseph is not focused on, maybe I'm missing out on some real fun here. And, you know, Joseph is focused on all the wonderful goodness of God. My master, he's talking about Potiphar there, but indirectly it's God. My master has made me the head of this whole place. I'm in charge. And I'm in charge of everything under the roof here, except you, his wife. How could I do this great sin? You see, his focus is on the goodness of God. Do you ever lose sight of the goodness of God? Sure you do. And I do too sometimes. Sometimes I say, man, I've been serving God, and things aren't going so well. I'm really getting the shaft, you know. I've been serving God, and all I'm going through is these trials. Boy, when you're feeling that way, and you're feeling a little sorry for yourself, and you're sucking your thumb, you know what? That's when it's real easy for the devil to tap you on the shoulder and say, hey, look at here. Because you've lost sight of the goodness of God. And I have to say to myself, hey, wait a minute. God has taken this plumber's kid and blessed him mightily. I can't lose sight of that. Let me tell you this. When David sinned with Bathsheba, listen to this. Nathan, the pastor, came by one day, and Nathan told him that story, you remember, and so forth. And then that story that Nathan told him was just amazing, and it showed David his sin, and David just repented of his sin. And then Nathan said, God said through Nathan to David, David, I took you from being a shepherd boy to being the king of my nation, Israel. And I gave you this, and I gave you this, and I gave you this, God says. And if that wouldn't have been enough, if you'd asked me, I'd have given you more. But no, you had to take another man's wife. And you can almost hear the heartbreak of God. It's like a parent with an ungrateful child. I've given you so much, and if that wouldn't have been enough, I'd have given you this, but you had to go steal. What happened to David? He lost sight of the goodness of God. And you and I do that. God has been so good to me. How could I turn my back on God and say, okay, God, that's a lot of good stuff, but I want this. I'm going to take this bait and lose all that God has given to this plumber's kid? And so, be realistic, be responsible, be ready, be refocused. I'm telling you, the key to overcoming temptation is this. It is number 4. It is refocus. Refocus. And in fact, twice in this first chapter of James, he speaks of blessed is the man. And we're looking at one of them today, and next Sunday we're going to look at another one in verse 25. And I'm going to show you really how to refocus. And you'll be amazed at how helpful this is to you in your walk with God. Now, let me just say in closing that sometimes as you face temptation, sometimes you just need to get out of Dodge. You know, sometimes you just need to exit stage left, get out of there. And that's exactly what Joseph did. He physically had to remove himself. Genesis 39. She caught him by his garment, saying, lie with me. And he left his garment in her hand, and he fled and went out. It cost him. He lost his job. He lost his position. He lost his freedom. He was cast into prison. He lost his reputation. But listen to this. He kept his character. Was it worth it, Joseph? Well, like old Paul Harvey used to say, we know the rest of the story, And it was worth it in the long run. And it's always worth it in the long run. Take the long look. But sometimes you just have to physically remove yourself if it's possible. Sometimes it's not possible. Sometimes, the temptation's at work and whatever, and you're not always able. Anyway, 1 Corinthians 15, do not be deceived. Bad company corrupts good morals. Be careful. Be careful. You may have to make some new friends. You may have to... Now, in closing, I want you to see this verse on temptation. 1 Corinthians 10. No temptation has overtaken you, but such is as common to man. We saw that line earlier. And God is faithful. That means He'll do it every time. He's faithful. Who will not allow you to be tempted beyond what you are able. Sometimes we say, oh, my temptation is just way too strong for me. I can't win. No, God said He will not allow us to be tempted above what we are. But will with the temptation provide a way of escape so that you are able to endure it. It starts with our mind and it runs into action. I like what Martin Luther said, I can't keep the birds from flying over my head, but I can keep them from building a nest in my hair. And I can't keep certain thoughts from shooting through my mind. And sometimes the worst thoughts shoot through my mind. I say, oh man, where did that come from? And really it came from the devil. But I don't have to entertain it, And so it starts with the mind. We have a promise. Blessed is the man who perseveres under temptation or trial.